Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. I've had this car now for a little over 12,000 miles, and I've just done a previous video where I talked about the 5 really good things that I've learned about this car, and I still think it's an absolutely fabulous thing. But let's be honest about it, not every car is perfect, so these are the 5 annoying things about my Tesla Model Y. A bit of a squeeze past this. The sheer size of this thing is one of the things that we're going to talk about. Okay, point number 1, rattles. This car rattles. Now, we've talked about this in a few other videos. There are various places where this car has got an amazingly soft and dampened bit of design, and there's some others where it isn't great. And rattles is one of them. Fundamentally, there are bits of this car's trim which just jiggly and makes a noise that gets a bit annoying. And I think the 2 main things that I've been able to identify are the seatbelt buckles, where if you have the seatbelt in the wrong place, the plastic buckle vibrates against a plastic bit of trim on the seat. And the other one is the seats themselves, especially the rear seats. There is just a little bit of play in the rear seats where they split and on the rear headrest that I think is responsible for the worst of the rattling noises. Now, it isn't helped by the fact that this car has got a massive amount of boot space, and that is very useful for stowing loads of stuff in. And to be honest, I quite often end up with all kinds of stuff just thrown in here and there, and that stuff rattles. So quite often what I thought of as being the car rattling isn't the car rattling, it's the junk that I've thrown in the car rattling. But nevertheless, this car has got a stiff ride, and the stiff ride does mean that it vibrates in a few places. Quite a few people have said in the comments the ride in it is too stiff, it's got a harsh ride. It really hasn't. I have had more firmly riding cars than this, and because this car has got so much power, you do need that kind of firmer ride. I think you could argue for a depowered, defanged Tesla Model Y that has got less power and therefore can have softer suspension. I think they'd probably sell quite well, but for whatever reason they haven't done, because the EV nuclear arms race is all about power, which means stiff suspension, which means vibration, which means rattly badness. Oh, hang on a second. The second one that we should talk about, and this is a prime example, and we've just had it. Number 2, width. This is a big car. This is a really big and actually quite wide car. Now, I live here in the beautiful Aberdeenshire in Scotland, especially on a glorious day like this. And there's quite a lot of roads like this one which are single track. It's not actually as big a deal as you might think, because let's face it, this is farming country, so there's an enormous amount of pickup trucks which are at least as wide as this, and tractors of course which are wider. But it is a big car, and if anything it's a little bit too big. Now, I quite like all kinds of different sizes of cars depending on my mood. I've had a Mini Cooper which was little, and I've had a big Volvo S90 which was a lot bigger, and this is on the lot bigger scale. I think actually the Volvo was bigger again because it had really big overhangs off the front and the back past the wheels. This doesn't, it's got shorter overhangs, but the wheelbase is long. And what that means is that if you have got a sudden change in gradient, such as coming off my driveway, you can get a bit of scraping. Now, in my case, it's just from stones on my gravelly drive, but I think you could start grounding this thing. Now, again, this is not a Tesla specific thing. There's plenty of cars out there where you have that kind of issue, but it does have to be pointed out. It's a big car, it's a wide car, it's quite a long wheelbase car, and you've got to be a little bit careful with it. Let's put it like this: it's not the best car to be darting around town in, unless your town is like American size, hi all, because otherwise it ain't gonna fit. The third thing that I want to talk about is software. And It's one of these Jekyll and Hyde things, and actually the next few points are Jekyll and Hyde, because the software bugs aren't actually that big a deal, because they're constantly pushing out updates. So if there's a problem, they push an update out and fix it, usually. And this is, again, not a Tesla specific thing. My beloved Volvo S90 had a variety of software bugs on its proprietary Volvo system, and I had to take it back into the dealers several times to have it dealt with. And the way it works with a car like that is it's not over the air. They have to plug the laptop in and flash a software update. If the software update has been written, and certainly in the case of Volvo, if Volvo UK were prepared to pay the dealer for an hour of labour, I assume, to plug the laptop cable in and actually do it. And there were quite a few times where we had a bit of an argument about it, which is annoying. So this car has got its own bugs. There's one at the moment where the mapping software loses connectivity for no particular good reason, but it just loses connectivity, and instead of having a beautiful view of where you're going, in my case I'm pointing straight down towards the little fishing village of Pennon, but the screen will disappear and mapping goes away and you're kind of left in the dark. And there is a way to fix it, which is to do a reboot of the machine. So press and hold both steering wheel buttons for 5 seconds, and that seems to clear the bug, but it's just annoying that it's there at all. And it's one of these things that they haven't managed to fix yet. We've had updates pushed out for various things, and I've had auto wipers and auto lights being the big two things that are annoying as hell when they get them wrong. But on the bright side, the software update gets pushed out and then they improve them again. So it is Jekyll and Hyde, because it's a bit like having a computer or a phone, especially the phone that I'm recording this part of the video on. You get an awful lot of OS updates, both full new versions being rolled out and also patches and improvements and so on. Same with Windows on a computer. I'm sure Apple is kind of the same thing. So the point there is you're always getting these updates and they're always making little fixes. And every now and then the little fix makes some things worse. And it's kind of the same thing with the car, right? The car is a giant rolling computer, and that does mean that some of the time they're going to get it wrong. And when they get it wrong, they tend to get it really wrong. So it's just one of these things where if people are just expecting a car, or an car, a vehicle of transport to get me from point A to point B, it's a bit of faff. If, though, you're a bit of a geek, it's not a faff, and actually you love it. So I would have the screen and the software and all the automation and stuff absolutely up there as something that is seriously good about getting a Tesla. But it isn't for everybody, and it's just one of those things that you probably need to be aware of. The fourth point, and this is probably me just being a bit picky, but turning circle. This car turns like a supertanker in that it has got these huge fat tyres, and that restricts the amount that the front wheels can turn. So to get out of my driveway, I actually have to shunt because I can't get enough lock on to be able to make it around. The Volvo even managed to do that without having to shunt, and that had the same big fat tyres and a similarly bad turning circle, but the Volvo could just about make it round. The Tesla can't. And it's just a little bit annoying. You know, I've had it where I've had to shunt to get round getting out of car parks. So one of my road trip videos, I was in Newcastle coming out of the station car park, and I had to shunt to get around. It's just annoying. It's not that the car isn't agile to drive, right? It really isn't. This is a properly planted, chuckable sports family hatchback thing. But the steering lock is just annoying. And again, I said this isn't the car to take around town if you need to squeeze through gaps, and that was based on just the sheer size of it, the width especially. Add the poor turning circle onto it and it becomes another problem. It's absolutely brilliant on the open road, but squeezing it along and tight turns and things, it can be a bit of a pain in the bum. And my fifth point, and this is probably going to be slightly controversial, my main gripe with Tesla is that everything's proprietary. Okay? I do not like being stuck in some tech firm's ecosystem where basically you have to carry on doing everything the way they want to do it. I think it is annoying. It's a problem. It's not something that's particularly good. But with Tesla, this is using Google Maps, but it's using their proprietary version of Google Maps. This uses Spotify, but it's their proprietary software flash version. It's not playing off a phone. So there's no Android Auto, there's no Apple CarPlay. And if you like those bits of software, that's a problem. And the charging network, superchargers are genuinely transformational. It's the reason why I can have an EV and do long trips. And obviously I've done 12,000 miles in 7.5 months. That's decent. But I can only do that because of the superchargers, but the superchargers are proprietary. Now, I know you're probably saying, but hang on, it's got the same CCS connector as anything else, and it has in Europe. But I know in America, they've still got the proprietary Tesla connector, and proprietary connectors and proprietary networks are a bad thing. It's the walled garden, it's a closed shop. It's why I don't have anything by Apple. So it's the best thing and it's the worst thing, if that makes sense. Does it make sense? Let me know in the comments. And with that, I'm going to leave it here. So don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you very soon back here on Just Get a Tesla.